Parenting's hard, you don't know what to do. You're blaming your kids, but it's probably you. You love your kids and that you can trust. Just remember your kids don't suck.
Welcome to Your Kids Don't Suck, cultivating closeness with your children through non-coercive conscious parenting. We're your hosts, Cara Tedstone and Rythea Lee. Let's dive in and grow together.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Your Kids Don't Suck, where your kids still don't suck, even after many episodes. I hope we've convinced you that you're the one who sucks, but we love you for sucking because we also suck.
Yeah.
So that's my very graceful way of saying, let's get into it. Today, the topic is so juicy. It's play, playing with our kids, not playing with our kids, being able to, not being able to, being blocked. I mean, lots and lots of people have trouble playing with their kids. Some people can play, but they can't do other things. They can't be organized. I mean, we all have our different strengths and weaknesses. But play is a continual issue for people that I have seen because I'm in touch with parents and I'm online and I hear lots and lots of comments of like, I just can't do it. I can't do it. It drives me crazy. It's so boring. I shut down. I'm in pain. It triggers me. It activates me. It brings up trauma. It makes me hate my kids. It makes me hate myself. You know, it's a very loaded topic. Right, Cara?
Yeah, and another thing that people will say is that they don't have time, which I also want to acknowledge that people will think they don't have time. So they have to, people will say like my job's not to entertain my child, which I actually really get what they're saying. I really understand what they mean. We are here to offer like another perspective inside of this idea that, maybe our role as parents can be playmate, friend, peer, and that you can cultivate time in your life for that if that's one of your values, if that's what you want, is this close and connected relationship with your kids, then we can offer you some hope that there is a way to find the time, make the time, and get into it.
Yeah, and you can guide your child through play, like guiding your child in their life with what they want to accomplish, or if they want to process emotionally. Play is one of the most effective ways to help your children integrate and process everything, because that's how they are. They are playful beings, and they can be open much more to us when we're playful. I mean, I know that's obvious, but it's not. Play is not a separate thing from life. It's also not a separate thing from getting things done. It's not a separate thing to being successful. It's part of being successful, and it's part of having a relationship.
And it's intrinsically also learning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to offer some research about it. And so the way we're going to do this podcast is we're going to play you a little recording about play. And then we're going to talk about each of our stories as parents. This is Rythea. I have a 12-year-old. Cara.
I'm Cara. I have almost a 2.5-year-old.
Right, we're in really different stages of parenting. So we're going to talk about where we're at with play. We're going to share the ways we have played with our children and are playing with our children and why it's been so powerful. And then we're going to talk about blocks to playing, what might be blocking you, and how you might work on it. And we're both trauma therapists. So like at some point it kind of switches over to, are you blocked? Is this triggering you? And then how to work with that from a really perspective of healing.
Yeah, I was just going to say that healing. It's always about healing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not to judge you or anyone for not being able to play, but I don't think that the answer to not being able to play is to say it's fine, my kids don't need me to do that, because I got into a thing on social media with someone who was saying, it's great that I can't play, and it's great because my kids play alone and then I can get things done. And that was sort of, all these other parents were like, yeah, me too. Thank you for giving me permission. Now I don't have to play with my kids, and I'm like, oh, that's really not where I'm coming from. I really think that if you are blocked, it's an opportunity. It's like an incredible healing opportunity for your inner child to heal.
Yeah. I don't know if we keep this in what I'm about to say, Rithia, but I'm just thinking in my head, like there is maybe at some point some place where we can talk more about that, like just more about this whole notion in sort of the discourse in today's society that parents are seeking permission to not play with their kids.
Mm,
I just feel like that's worth kind of like digging into and talking about. And just, yeah, sharing more about like why that's again not my perspective either. And also without like shaming people for wanting that, for craving that, because I think that like I understand why people are seeking that out, that permission and that I guess, yeah,
right, they don't want to feel like a
encouragement.
well, they don't want to feel like a bad person and a
Yeah,
bad
because a lot of people
parent.
are, they're on accounts and they're looking for activities for their kids and they're trying to set up an independent play. Learning how to, independently play is a really big topic online. It's a big topic of certain podcasts, of certain creators, parenting educators and coaches. It's all about like, it's kind of like the sleep training conversation. It's like teaching your kid this life skill. And that's not how I see it because for so many reasons that we will get into. But I also want people to hear from me, specifically me, that like I totally hear you when you say you need your kid to occupy themselves. Like I really also get that. And that's a broader conversation in like the way that we think about systems and how we got here in individualism and all of those things. So I just feel like there's room to talk about and acknowledge people are pulling their hair out with
Right,
kids that won't leave them alone or asking, play with me, play with me, play with me.
right,
And it's like, where's the space to honor that alongside this thing that we're bringing that is like, we believe there's room to collaborate inside of this and it doesn't just have to be a like we don't play with our kids because that's not our job as parents.
right.
There's just so many pieces that I kind of want to touch on if we can, so we'll see how that goes.
I think that's worth keeping here because I think it's important to validate what's hard for people and not just
Yeah.
say, you're a jerk because you don't do this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there's like, the whole other conversation of, well, what do people get their kids to do when they need the time, which people often go to screens. And then, of course, screens are tainted with this like demonic, like you can't put your kid in front of a screen because then, you're being neglectful and lazy and it makes them have
Right.
bad behavior and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And parents are like, but what the hell can I do then? You want me to be online from dawn until dusk? It's like,
Right.
that all is worth saying and addressing inside of this show.
Mhm.
Yeah, I want people to
Yes,
know
and
that
we
I
do
get
talk
it.
about screens in many of our podcasts. So you can
Yeah,
find big discussions about that in many of our episodes because it's like a, a main concern of every parent at this point in
yeah,
history.
yep, yep. So we
So,
want you to know we're with you, and we will try to get to all those things.
yeah. And we're not going to talk about screens today because
Yeah,
that's part of this
check out our
conversation.
screen time episode because we do have one.
Right. We have a screen time episode. Right.
Yeah,
Hey, so we're going to play a clip. I just made this video on YouTube. Like I've been doing these long form videos where I try to talk about the underpinnings of non-coercive collaborative parenting and get into like the basic philosophy. So this is my video I just made about play, and I just think it has some good points. I hear from so many parents that it feels impossible to play with their kids. If it's you, you're not alone. So many parents say that it feels triggering or activating. If they feel blocked, they don't know how to do it, it's boring, it doesn't come naturally. And then they decide based on that many times that their kids don't need them to play with them because they feel it's forced, it's not fun, they don't get it. Let's talk about why play is so important for children. Hi, I'm Rythea Lee, and I am a parent and child advocate. I make videos about non coercive collaborative parenting, coming out of authoritarian practices and patterns into something much more mutual and playful. There are so many ways to play with kids. Sometimes it's imaginative play, like here, I'm just going to get some things like, Mom, you're the dog. And then you have to be like, oh, I'm the dog. Where are we going? And then they're like, we're going to the store. And goes, okay, what should we go in? Should we go in a truck? Should we go in a car? No, I want to fly. Yes, let's fly. Woo! And then we fly. That's imaginative play. Okay. But then there's the play where
your child says something that could be offensive, or just you're trying to get them to go somewhere and you're trying to make it funner. So you're like, hey, we need to put our shoes on. And they're like, I don't want to go in the car. And then you're like, I know, I'll wear your shoes and you wear my shoes. And then we switch shoes and then they jump in the car. Just a playful moment. There's sometimes our kids are having emotions and they don't know how to process them, and you get, I don't know, something, and you talk to them about their feelings. They're like, I feel mad, and they're like, I'm mad too. There's endless possibilities. Play is children's natural first language. It's actually the lens that they are looking through. They are born into such a bright and expansive dynamic of imagination. They see the world totally differently than adults who have been dumbed down, shut down, forced into linear thinking. They don't think linearly. They think in spirals, in layers, in dimensions, and they see the joy and the unknown that adults can't see anymore. Also, through their play, they show us how they feel, what they're struggling with, what they feel about relationships, their ideas about things, their mood, their fears. Play is natural expression. It's not separate from life. It's not like they're doing this and now they play. It's like play is everything. It's embedded into everything. And adults are so sadly so far from that. And our children are inviting us back into the world that's expansive, joyful, fun, and also connected, like a closeness. I feel so close when I'm playing with my daughter. That's the time where I feel most close. It sounds like I'm talking about young kids, but actually I play with my daughter. She's 12. We wrestle. She does my hair. She does my makeup. We make lots of jokes. We make up dances. We do this thing where we get in the pool and we do all this choreography and then we record it. I mean, the playing changes. We draw together. We paint together. Play can happen all through a child's life, no matter how old they are, even teenagers. You could make stuff together. You could cook together. There's like creativity just goes on and on. It's just that we live in such a capitalistic, patriarchal world where survival is now paramount all the time. So it's very hard for parents to play because they're so busy trying to survive, and they've lost that childlike wonder.
What came up for you listening to that?
Well, I just love how you talk about their world, how it's like explosive and non-linear. Like I love how you describe it. Like I was getting this, like everything we talk about for me is very like spiritual, because we're going to say that on our show. That's how we think about it. But it's like thinking about kids as being just like immersed beings, like inside of life. They are like truly what it means to have self energy, when you feel like you are in the present moment and you are tasting life. Kids are just born doing that. They're inside of life, and it's not about the next thing, and the time and the minutes and the concepts of time and the concepts of urgency, like completely not relevant to children, because they are truly designed to be out in the environment, tasting life, learning moment to moment, being present, and that's how they do things. So I loved how you described that.
I love what you just said about time. Yesterday, my daughter was hanging out with her two friends and they were doing trading. So they like had stickers and money and pens and markers and they were trading them. And they did it for like so long and they were
Yeah.
laughing and they were just being so funny. And it's like, it's the best. And that's what, really that's what adults really want deep down. We want that, but we've just been so crushed that so many parents and people just can't relate to it anymore. So sad. Some people never even got to do that the first time around.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one thing that makes it easy for me to access that is because I really remember it from childhood and also from Tori's age, like 12, 13, 14. I just got back from a trip where I was out east visiting, friends and family. And we were at some weddings where like a lot of people that we hadn't seen in a long time were there together, and it was all high school people. So people I've known since I was like 12, 13, and then,
Mm.
until I was in my 20s and moved away. And being back with them was such an example of how you really revert back. I'm sure people listening have had that experience. When you get together with like family or friends from the past, you become that part of yourself again that you were back then,
Mhm.
for better or for worse. But for me, it was for better, this time around because I just was able to like access this like teenage spirit that I still really identify with. It's like a big part of who I am, with all these people around and this unstructured free time because I had grandparents taking care of my kids sometimes. So I was able to like frolic. I felt like I was frolicking. I was going for drives. We were listening to music, old music, you know, partying with friends at weddings, listening to, I'm from Newfoundland. So like Newfoundland music, Irish music. I literally felt like I was 13 and I just know what it's like to have like this real flashback in time where you are a little kid again and you can just like laugh and be free and there's no demands and nothing matters and it's all unimportant. And I really remember that. I really, really remember that. And I just got like a months long taste of it. And it was so delicious.
Mm.
And I see that in my kid. And I'm like, man, every time I fall out of that and I kind of urge her along, I'm like, come on, come on, come on. And I'm pulling on her. I'm like, yeah, you're taking her out. Like she's looking at ladybugs, man. Like, you know, she's in that place right now and I'm pulling her out of it. And I don't want to do that because I know how sweet it is to be there.
Mm. I love what you're saying. I think this is a good moment for you to read the research.
Okay. Yeah, so I made some notes. I mean, probably this is not groundbreaking. There's been, I don't know how long studies on play have been going on, but
That's the whole thing about these studies. They're like, we've discovered that
right,
children need love. And you're like,
right. It's
"What?"
like, yeah, because like obviously the attachment research that was done in you know, the 60s and 70s and it was all published then. It's like, it was on, you know, stuff that we're supposed to know innately that we have to respond and attune to our children. But clearly we're in an age where like people like to have things proven and written about. So there is a lot of just proven research. I mean, it's literally written about for how many decades and decades and decades now because it's so clear to everybody that has ever seen a child that children learn best through play. And it's only the system that we're in that has sort of like removed that from the environments that they're in. Like think about kindergarten, and the best kindergartens in the world are obviously in places like the Netherlands where there's just play. Like they don't do learning. They don't sit down and point at letters and do phonics. They're playing outside all day long. And the adults don't really interact with them through, you know, really rigid mechanisms other than through play and through gentle guidance. Like that's the whole foundation of those learning programs in
Mm.
quotes, because they are learning programs, but they're not programs. They're
Mhm.
just play
Mhm.
based unstructured free time for kids to literally frolic. So, you know, there's so much out there. And if you're curious, I'll put like some of these studies, these papers, these books inside of the show notes and you can look it up. But like even if you just Google it, you're bound to find countless examples. The points highlighting the importance of play are clear through the research, and it's attachment formation, social skills development, cognitive growth, emotional regulation, language skills, physical development, of course, cultural learning, stress reduction, boosting self-esteem, and there are long-term outcomes associated with play. And these are all taken from studies. But these are things that I think we can overlook really easily as adults because of what you were saying, Rythea, that our culture places importance on the next thing and the next milestone. And so that sort of like linear microscopic lens that we look at children through really does not sort of give you that macro sense of like how much is happening with play. It's just not really sort of like you can't really articulate what skills children are developing on in a linear progression when you're watching them play. You just have to look at like, say, for example, these 10 things and be like, oh, they're getting all of those things while they play at different times. And it's immersive. So it's impossible for us to like put play inside of our traditional education hierarchical paradigm because it's not how play works and it's not how they learn through play.
Yeah, you can't measure it the same way. However, my daughter was unschooled for many years. And at the end of every quarter, we had to send a report to the school
Oh.
system, the superintendent, and say what had she been learning. Now, we weren't doing any structured learning. We were doing self-directed learning.
Mm-hmm.
And when we had to write down all that she'd been doing and learning, we were completely blown away
Yeah,
because
exactly.
She was naturally developing all these skills that
And I
we
love that you're saying that, because it's like at the end of the quarter, when you look back at, like, say, several months worth of like curriculum, again in quotes, but it's play-based learning, you can absolutely write down like a whole essay about like what any child has just learned in the last 4 months. But that's not how we do it in schools. We literally do weekly reports, and we
yeah.
talk about like learning outcomes in the short term. And you can't compare children's learning styles that way. That's not how like children learn. They're all doing different things at any one given time. So the whole system as we know it in terms of traditional education doesn't work to categorize and process the learning outcomes through play. It's just not built that way.
Right. And today we're going to focus on relationship, what it does for our relationship with our kid. I mean, there's
Yeah.
all the things they're learning about the world and themselves and their bodies and interactions and all the things that the benchmarks that the world wants them to be learning, they do learn through play. But in terms of parents, there's a whole wellspring of relationship building that happens through play from the minute they're born.
Hmm. Yeah.
um I thought we could each just say a little bit. I thought of some things. It's funny because like I could try to go early on playing with my daughter when she was young, but I was thinking of some mid-range, as she's gotten older, some games that we've gotten into. But I just want to say, when my daughter was your child's age, when she was 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, I had this puppet that was baby Toriel. So I played her as a baby,
Mm,
and she would nurture and love the baby Tori. We did that for years and years and years. She couldn't go to sleep until we'd had a conversation with baby Toriel. And
hmm.
I would pretend I was having all these problems, and she would talk to the puppet and hug the puppet, even when she was 5 and 6 years old. Um, and I would be like, I would sometimes bring up stuff that had happened that day, and I'd be like, I always talked in this weird voice. And he'd be like, "Today was hard, and I felt sad, and I couldn't go to sleep, and blah, blah, blah." And she'd go, "Oh, it's okay, blah, blah, blah." And we would go back and forth, and she would like really like build her empathy skills.
Yeah.
But then I would also say, "Hey, that's you when you were younger. That's
Yeah.
little you." So I was like working on, because I'm a therapist, inner
Yeah.
child work. Um,
Yeah.
she absolutely loved it. And sometimes even when she was having a hard time, she'd go get baby Toriel. And I'd be like, okay, we get it. And that's how and like she couldn't talk to me directly because
Hmm.
she was not an age where she could be, I was scared and then I shut down, blah, blah, blah. She was just like,
Yeah.
get the puppet, and that's how we would do it.
That's just so brilliant, and it's so funny how I'm just thinking in my head how I do the same thing in a different way, but it's the same. The premise of what you're talking about is like reflecting some emotional process onto some object and having a character sort of storyline development, and it's all imaginative and immersive. Like those things are so freaking brilliant, and I do all those things too. And I see other parents who play, probably listeners will be like, oh yeah, we do stuff like that. Like it's really intuitive. If you're into play, I feel like a lot of that stuff's really intuitive, and for some people it's not. But that's why we're here to sort of help you and give you some examples. And it's so brilliant. At like the core of all of that is everything, like on this list of important things that exist through play. Like all of the things are in there.
For parents who want to try this, who haven't done this yet, you can't do it in order to try to control your kid. So you can't
Yeah.
put on the puppet and go, I didn't like when you walked with your dirty shoes all around the house and I'm mad. Blah, blah, blah. Like you can't put all of your controlling authoritarian shit into the puppet because that's not going to work. You have to be, you learn when you do theater improv that it's yes and you say yes to everything. So whatever they bring
Mm,
up, you say yes. You jump into their world. Like that's the thing about plays. Like they know so much better about play than we do. So you have to
mm,
jump into their world and just be like really innocent and really open and be like, really? Then what happened? What should we do now? Oh, I feel sad. Are you sad? And she'd go, no, I feel good. And be like, you're happy? Let's be happy. Blah, blah, blah. Like you just
yeah.
like to say yes to where she is and let
That's
her
such a
guide.
good point with the yes and. I love that. I feel like people should write that down, or like if you struggle with play, that's a great place to start. Just like literally just join your kid and say yes to everything. Cause I'll see sometimes people who are not, and I was an early childhood educator. Like I'm certified ECE. So and I was a teacher. I taught every grade. I was a teacher for 5 years. Before that, I also worked with autistic kids and families for like I've been working with young children for 15 years. So a lot of this you kind of just learn through like practical experience. If you're new though, that is such a good way to look at it. Like just do yes and, because I'll see some people play with their kids and the kid will be like, here's a donut, but it'll actually be like an ice cream cone. And the parent will be like, no, that's an ice cream cone. And it's like, don't do that. Just go with
Yeah, say,
just
"Yes, I
always
love
just
your
say yes.
donut."
And I love
Right.
that. Oh my gosh, I wonder what flavor it is. Is it blueberry? And then the kid will be like, no, it's grape. And you'll be like, I love grape. Oh, how about some? And then you just go from there.
You say yes. Yeah,
Yeah. So
exactly, 'cause, sometimes the way parents play with their kids is they go, "No, no, no.
it's through teaching.
Don't
Like
get
it's with
dirty.
this.
Don't put your hands on that, la, la." There's a lot of no, and there's a lot of fear because of the mess, and the
Or
parents.
there's also like, well, what's the outcome? Like parents will get really linear with it. And they'll be like, but I want my kid to know that like grape is purple and that's not purple, so it can't be grape. And they'll want to
Right,
like really make it clear, like all these objectives. And it gets very quickly like very boring for the kid because it's like, you're not playing with me, you're trying to
right.
teach me. And kids really like
Right,
really
that's a
get that
very
right
good
off the bat.
point. Yeah, because, like, even little kids, when they're trying to put the different shapes in the different holes and they can't get them in, it's like if you get really focused on them getting it right, you're not
Yeah.
playing anymore. You're
You're not
gone.
playing
It's
anymore.
it's over. Game
It
over.
becomes a lesson. Like all of these little tiny
Yeah.
micro moments become then like a lesson. So in order to play, like this yes and idea is like kind of the foundation. You're really joining with your child in their world. So it's not about your world anymore. You're actually like they're inviting you in. So like you're a guest now, and whatever they say is what you do. You go with them in every way. So you don't present, new ideas unless it's something that like they might really love because they've already opened the door to something and you're adding to it, but you're
Right.
not coming in with an agenda or like a teaching, lesson plan, because that's not going to be received. And I see a lot of parents not really get the difference there. Like I think it's important to really make that clear that that's not what we're going for.
This makes me realize, like, people get so triggered. Like, have you ever read the book Playful Parenting? It's this groundbreaking book, and I can't remember the author's name because it's a book that's changed a lot of people's life. It's called Playful Parenting. And he says that, people have all these ideas that things are wrong. Like, for example, guns. Everyone gets triggered by guns, and so then
Yeah, so true.
the kids try to shoot things, and they're like, no, 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 we don't do that in the house, and we don't have
Yeah.
guns, da, 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 da. But he says the best way for children to actually work through their feelings about violence is to actually get in there and do guns with them and shoot things and kill things, and
Yes.
and pretend you're dying, and oh, you got me. It's like actually for them to fully get in it so they can work through it.
Yeah.
Where if you just say no, we don't do guns, then they're gonna find when they can get to the guns themselves, they will.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually with someone recently, and the kid was like playing with like a stick, and it was like poking at me, and that was the game. And the parent was like, "Oh, we don't play with weapons though." I just thought like, but that would have definitely been like a whole game that we would have just like played inside of for a long time, and,
Right.
and connected, and like the parent may have joined. But I think people are really, really misguided. Like they don't know that. Like I mean this with no shame. I just mean like people are not like aware that
Right.
it's more than okay to talk about certain themes, like especially themes like death and like killing and pain and
Right.
suffering. And
Right.
parents, I think, have this idea that like children lack empathy when they do that, which no, like not at all. Like play therapy literature tells us that actually that's how they develop those skills, is to experiment and explore and try on different themes in play and process. So if we join them, we actually can guide then. We can go like model all those feelings of
Right.
empathy and, oh my gosh,
Right.
wow, how are you feeling? And wow, and there's just a whole world in there of learning, but it kind of does require the parents' guidance. That's why in
Yep.
independent play, you're not there. You're not there to actually do some of that learning alongside your kid and find
Yeah, you're
out what
not
they
there,
think.
and you're not there to learn about what they're expressing.
Exactly.
Because kids do express fears. You know, you hear a lot about kids who have trauma backgrounds. They express it all through the play.
Well, there's so many examples, like even with the weapons thing or bullying or anything that feels like we as parents are like watching our kids do it, and it's obviously like we're gonna be, oh God, is my kid gonna be the, like, you go on Reddit and you read about anything in parenting, and honestly, often you'll see we need to talk about Kevin. Do you know that reference of the movie, the book? And it's about this kid who becomes a school shooter and like,
Um,
kills a bunch of people, and it's
um,
written from the mom's perspective, and it's horrible and
um,
harrowing. And people reference that a lot online because they're like, my kid's playing with guns, or my kid's playing and pretending to like cut
right,
people. I
right,
just don't want my kid to be like the kid from We Need to Talk
right.
About Kevin.
Well, that's a really good point.
And it's really scary. Of course, I'm with you, people. We do not want our kids to, have something like, if that's a red flag, we want to be on the lookout, obviously. And I'm just also reminding people that, like, in the context of, play therapy and working with children in a connected way, like, we're going to use how they play to connect with them, to help guide them through preferred play of their choice. Like, that's how we are going to guide them. And yes, there are kids who actually have real struggles, and kids who do things that are very, very scary. And so, like, we're not talking about those extreme situations right now. We're talking about, like, in general, playing with your child. It's
Right.
okay, and you have permission to join them, and we don't have to set like a whole bunch of rules
Hmm.
um and expectations around how they play, because it's typically not an issue. And in fact, it's how they learn what to do.
So I had a very short story. I got divorced when my daughter was 2.5. So at 2.5, while she was still nursing, she had to see me half the time. It was very traumatizing for her. I talk about this a lot in my podcasts. But like, she was she started hitting very shortly after we separated, other children and me. And I couldn't get her to cry. I mean, I wanted her to cry. I wanted her to work through it through crying, but she was not a crier. And but I started to do a lot of play with her, and she could laugh, like hysterical laughing, and I started to see that as a discharge of emotion, like a really effective. After we would play and she'd laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh, she had really great free attention for hours.
Mm.
um yeah, so I learned a lot through that, and at some point she started to be able to cry, but it literally took like 4 years. I wanted to share some things I've done with my child, just for fun. We have a whole series of blanket games that me and Will, my partner, have played with my daughter, Tori, her whole life, like since she's little. She does these games where she gets under the blanket with her and Will. They're under the blanket, and they spend time preparing, and they tuck the blanket as much as they possibly can, and then I have to try to get in. And so I try to put my hands, and I tickle them from above, and I give them, and I try to get them to let go so I can get in, and then I get my hand under there. And if I can touch one of them, I win. And if I can't get in, then they win. We played that for years. She thinks it's so funny. She
I
thinks she's
love that.
finally over it, but barely. I think we even did it recently. Then we did this dumpling making game where she would get in the blanket, and me and Will would stand up, and we'd each hold part of it, and we would make all different meals with her inside. We'd be like, what should we make in the dumplings? Let's put in onions, let's put in vegetables. Then we would move, and we would cook it
Mm,
and move it around. She'd be inside the blanket. And I think that my daughter has sensory issues, so like being wrapped up in the blanket and being, she loved that, and we would do before she would go to sleep. So something about being moved in the blanket.
mm. And a lot of kids love that. I mean, I would say most kids love that sensory input before bed, especially like is really regulating. Deep pressure, vestibular input, movement, all that stuff is very regulating.
Yeah, blanket games. Like she
Blanket
just
games.
couldn't get enough of that. Um, she does this. We've been doing this game for years that she plays when her friends come over, where it's called the airplane game, where we put a bunch of chairs like an airplane, and then
Yeah.
there's like a cart where the flight attendant, there's, so someone plays the flight attendant, and her friends are all the different characters on the plane, and they have to like cause all these problems for the flight attendant. And we've been doing that for years. And
It's so
Will
fun.
is like amazing at characters. He knows all different accents. He does all these French, he does a French speaker and a German speaker, and he's so funny. So he'll play like this very flustered flight attendant, and I think it's so funny. We have snacks and everything. So we play flight attendant. And then we've done this game where these are games where both parents are present because we do it at night, like a lot of times before bedtime, where we move all the furniture out of the living room. It's not a lot. There's just a couple things. We move out, and then Will puts on this mask and we play like music like on Spotify playlist, and he has to try to tag us with his eyes closed, and we play all these songs. And while he's trying to find us, we're dancing our asses off. And we also hide at all different parts of the living room. And he loves it. And he goes around, and sometimes he can tag us. Like if you're hiding like a certain part, he can tag us. Play this for hours. And we would just like get a lot of like physical exercise. And there were points. Like every time and if he gets up to 6 points, then we switch, and another person is like the blindfold person.
Yeah.
And it's so, so fun.
That just
Um,
sounds the most fun ever. And it sounds like a really, really like fun house, like a fun family.
Well, her friends come over and play these games with us. Like
Yeah,
they're like,
it's
let's play that
awesome.
blindfold game, and then we all play it with the friends over. And I
Yeah.
feel so lucky because I have a really playful partner. He's so hilariously funny.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky. Her dad is also really playful and really funny. They do a lot of
Same.
wrestling, her and her dad. And then I've said this on other podcasts, but we did special time, this is
Mm,
so good for you parents to know about special time, because if everything I'm saying sounds like so intimidating, you do this thing where you time it, and it could literally be 15 minutes. You could be say, for 15 minutes I'm doing special time with my kid, which means put your phone away, completely away, where you can't even hear it and see it, okay? And then you say to your kid, we're going to do special time, and we're going to time it for 15 minutes. You're in charge, and I'll do anything you want. And then for those 15 minutes, you just completely surrender to their will, and you follow them around, and they say, well, I'm going to tie you up. Well, now we're gonna have to, I don't know, whatever. They always have ideas they want to do. Like, now we're gonna all go on a boat. Now, blah, 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 and you have to say yes and just like completely surrender. And if you know, adult, that it's only 15 minutes, or even 10 minutes, even 5 minutes. If you have trouble playing and you need to figure out like a contained way to start, because
mm,
we're gonna get into why playing is hard, but one of the triggers is feeling engulfed, like feeling like it's endless amount of time, and you're supposed to perform in some way, and you don't know how, and it doesn't come to you, and you feel trapped. And a lot of times the kids are going, no, you did it wrong, put the hat on, you know what I
mm,
mean? And then you get
mhm,
triggered because you're trying so hard and you're embarrassed, and then now your kid's telling you you're doing it all wrong. So if you could time it and just like work up to like longer and longer periods of time where you can just let go.
mm,
Anyway, we did a lot of special time. We
mm,
would, yeah.
I think that's a great option for people who are feeling like they need to say no because they're, they've got a bunch of kids or they've got like a bunch of work stuff and they don't have any resources. That's what we're talking about, is parents who are totally under resourced and are like, I can't fucking sit around with my kid for 2 hours and play every day. I just like that's not an option. So special time for 5 minutes. It's like after
Yeah,
nap.
you
And
could say to your kid, we're gonna do 10 minutes a day, and start doing special time for 10 minutes a day right before bed or right after dinner.
yeah.
Um, yeah, and then they start to look forward to it, and it becomes this special thing.
Yeah. And I love that too, because inside of that, there's all this collaboration. Like, how long is special time? When is special time? Should we do 2 special times or 1 special time? And you get your needs met as a parent because you cultivate a time and a space that works for you. And then your kid also gets to weigh in like, all right, well, I like 10 minutes. Okay, well, I've only got 8 today. So let's do 8 today. And you just always have a constant conversation about like what's working for you and your kid. And it's not just about like, I don't play with my kid. I just say no because it's their job to entertain themselves.
Also, your
Um,
fucking phone, like, our fucking phones.
our phones are, yeah,
This is a
for sure.
new thing. It's never happened before, where parents
And
are
like
like,
guilty. I just want everybody to know fully, we're talking about us. Like I'm talking about me. I'm guilty of using my phone and I have to put it away. And I have that thing with my partner where I'm like, buddy, like let's put the phones away. Like you've been on your phone a lot. It's just this, yeah, it's a block. It's another block. It's a distraction. We also use
also,
it.
my kid now has a phone. She is
Yeah.
also on her phone.
Yep. It's another
Yeah,
thing to
like
navigate.
the times that we play the most are like when we're going to sleep because our phones are all turned off.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is again, a whole other conversation around screens and navigating
Yeah,
your use as a family, but
yeah,
not in a way that you limit your kids' use, because again, this is about you and your child together navigating things like phones.
yeah.
But I just want everybody to know, like, I also have a phone that I'm on all the time, and I'm really conscious of like my use. I try to put it away when I'm playing with my kid, and during times like special time. Um, I don't really have like a scheduled special time, but we do a lot of special time. I always put my phone down in a way. I'll put on music. I put it because I like that little input in the background. I don't really like it just to be quiet in my house. I gives me creepy. I don't know. I don't like it.
Mm,
So I have music on in the background. Put my phone away. I find it cozy, and then I can get into
mm.
it.
Let's transition to you. Will you talk about
Yeah.
your books?
Yeah, okay. So I do a lot of those things, blanket games. I love that. I wanted to talk about how I love blanket games because we also do one like the dumplings, but it's a biscuit and I make her into a biscuit. And just this morning she climbed up on the bed and she goes, "Hey, remember the biscuit game?" And I was like, "Yeah," because we played it yesterday. So we do a lot of that stuff. And those are fun too because they're like very short. Like you can do that before, like I like playful moments when things are getting hard. Like my kid is in the, she's 2.5 and she's also highly spirited. So she's like, "No, I don't want to. No, I'm not going there. No, you sit here." She gets very like, demanding,
Mm,
controlling, I guess.
mhm.
She's asserting herself as much as possible these days.
Yeah,
And when that's
right.
driving me, when that's actually getting me to like wanting to pull my hair out, because I'm like, I can't take another scream in my face,
Mhm,
then I'll be like, I wonder if somebody's ready to become a biscuit. And then I just like chase her and then we play. And it
mm,
just moves, all of the energy around and gets you
mhm.
back into connection. So you can pull out things like those little playful moments when you really need to shift the energy. They're good for that. But I also make books. I make lots of stories for my child and I tell lots of stories verbally, but I write them down. And I don't know if I can like share this in the show notes, maybe like a picture of it or something, but I wrote a book. I've written a couple. There's one called Aaliyah Goes to the Doctor and Aaliyah Goes to Newfoundland. And this is a book that I wrote for her about her trip that we took recently. And it's all about going on the airplane. I should say a few words about what these are called. These are social stories. So this is not my made up idea. This is like a known, tried and true support for especially kids with special needs. So autistic kids, kids who have trouble transitioning, kids who need lots of priming when something's happening that they are unsure of. So, there's books all over the web, like the web on like different types of social stories. So like anything from using the potty to going to the dentist to getting dressed to going to school to meeting a new teacher, whatever you name it, there's a social story for it and you can write your own. So literally how this works is you just write down the steps in story form of whatever is happening in your kid's life. And I'm writing one now about my kid is really not sure of strangers and gets upset when they try to talk to her. So I'm writing a story called Aaliyah Learns About Strangers. And it's just all about us, her parents, talking to her about strangers and trying out different ideas of what she can do or say when she feels unsure. And the point that I want to make in this context, in this your kids don't suck context, is that this is not a behavior modification tool. This is a priming strategy. So this is sharing with your kid what might happen, how they might feel, what might be said, what could be done, but it's not about shaming your kid or coercing your kid or lecturing your kid or teaching your kid. It's just about reading a story about something that's going to happen in their life that they might find tricky to really have a process together about what might happen. And it also is a
Did you
conversation starter.
is this like Aaliyah Goes to Newfoundland? Did you make it before you went on your trip so she could
Yeah,
get
yeah.
ready?
It's
That's
always
what
like
you mean
a
by priming? I don't know that
priming, yeah. So
priming.
like prepping your kid,
Prepping,
preparing your kid.
uh-huh.
It's all about like what's upcoming. So like people in the like the ND world, neurodivergent world of education, also in like the parenting, like play therapy space, like people will be familiar with social stories because anything that's happening can be put into a social story, but it's really important to do it in the lead up. So things like all those stories, you see kids have like a baby sibling. It'll be like
Yeah.
Johnny gets a baby sister, Johnny's new
Will you
sister or
read
whatever.
yours? Will you read yours?
Yeah, I'll read parts of it. It's long. It's 10
Oh,
pages and there's
okay.
quite a bit of text on each page.
Oh,
I'm
I see.
showing I'm showing Rythea the book here on camera. So it's like, Aaliyah's going on a special trip with mommy and daddy, and we will fly in a big airplane from Toronto to St. John's to visit Nana, Papi, Dadaji, and Ami. Those are her grandparents. Flying
Uh-huh.
is so much fun. And then I've actually put in, I talk about the steps to the airport. We'll walk inside. There'll be lots of noises, but we'll hold your hand and stay together. I put pictures of the airport, of the
Oh,
Toronto
this is
airport.
so great.
And then we talk about security, how you put, the bags on the conveyor belt. And when it's
Oh,
time to get there, we sit in our seats and we look outside, and, people are quiet on an airplane, and you might take a nap or play with your special toys. You'll have special snacks, and talk about her new headphones that I got her. And I put the picture of them in.
yeah.
I
Oh,
really want to like share anything that might be new for my kid. I want to put it in the book. And
wow.
I just want to really try to get down to the details. And so social stories are another way that you can play with your kid and learn together about anything that might be challenging. And this could be
Mm,
literally anything. You can write a
mm,
social story, and
mm.
it can be very simple. The simpler, the better, the more clear and concise, the better, especially given, I'm talking about toddlers.
For some reason, that sounds hard to me.
Mm.
Is there a way you can do it just verbally? You just tell the
Well,
story?
I was gonna say, like, instead of creating a whole book, like writing it out and putting pictures, yeah, you can tell a story and be like, once upon a time, there was a little girl named Aaliyah, and
Uh-huh.
she was gonna go on a big trip with mom and dad to
Oh,
Newfoundland. So
fun.
they got their bags, they packed them together, and they put everything in the suitcase, and they didn't forget little Puppy. Puppy had to come too. So they put
Good.
Puppy in, and da 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 da, and you can just literally walk through the steps
Right.
of anything. I do work with parents who, like you're saying, Rithia, find it hard to do that. This is just
Yeah.
one way I like to play, and like this is something I love to do. I love creating materials. I was a teacher, so I love creating materials for my kid. I'm good at it.
What
And
does she do when you read it? Does she add in
oh,
or
she just eats it up. I have a kid who loves books, and not all kids love books,
yeah.
right off the bat. So I have a kid who loves books, and she can sit there for hours. I mean, she'll ask me to read that book 4 or 5 times in a row. And she'll just sit there. She will just like wide eyes eat it up the whole time. And she'll memorize it, and she'll recite it, and she'll tell everybody, and she'll say, I'm gonna do my Newfoundland story, and she'll recite it.
That's
Yeah.
so cute. She's
It's
so
great.
adorable. I love
There's also like, things like bedtime routines, or transitioning to mom and dad's house if you have a blended family, or divorced family. Like there's so many things you can put into a story instead of like just telling them what's going to happen.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's what I do with the puppet, only I would act like I was her. So I'd be like, let's say we met new friends. I'd be like, I met new people today.
Hmm.
Did you? And she'd go, yeah, I met new people too. What are their names? And she would tell me their names. Like it'd be a
Yeah.
way to like integrate what was happening.
Yeah, totally.
Or
And
like
talk about it.
when
And
go
talk about it instead of like when they come home from school, or they're at daycare, or they're with grandma. You're not like, you could say, how did it go? I do that too, but you can also play about it. You can be like, do a whole scene at grandma's house and pretend to be grandma with a puppet or a doll and see what they say. Maybe that's part of what they did, and you get more information, and you also, maybe you don't, but that's not the point. It's like just to connect through all of their experiences to bring you together.
Well, also, like, a lot of kids can't answer the question, "How was your day?" or
Exactly.
"What did you do?" Like, they just can't. That's not how their brains work yet. They
Yeah.
don't, Um, my daughter, we used to build forts. Like, building forts was like her life. And she could actually like open up a lot when we'd play making the whole fort, and then we'd get inside the fort, and then we'd have these great talks like in the fort. you
So
know,
great.
because
Yeah.
she had moved her body and we had been collaborating and we were doing something really fun, and everything softened, and then we would get really close inside the fort, and then we'd share things.
It's so
She would
great.
tell me things. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's endless ways to play with kids that's not necessarily like,
Like,
like
yeah, like places where we like thrive, or things that we
yeah,
like.
that are easier. Like some people do
Yeah.
great with drawing with children,
Yeah.
like making stuff with their hands. Oh my God, I'm following this. Are you following this person? I think it's on TikTok where she cooks with her little young, like 2-year-old kid, and they make these like amazing
Cool.
creations.
No, I haven't seen that.
That's not me. That's not, I can't do that. But they have this amazing relationship, and he helps with everything. And then they eat at the end. And it's like, oh my God. Anyway, so you have like, we all have different things that we sort of are easier for us than other people around
Mm.
play. And you have to figure out your way to do it. That works for you.
Here's another clip from Rithea's video on playing with your kids.
I am a trauma therapist. I work with trauma survivors for 28 years. Everyone has trauma in their life. We live in a traumatic world. Most people have childhoods that are very traumatic through peers, through school, through systemic oppression. There's so much trauma. What I've seen is that part of you that was so alive and awake, like your child, has been squashed and buried. Okay. It is now, you can't get to it anymore. You don't even relate to it. Your inner child is gone because you got hurt and you had to get rid of it for whatever your very good reasons are. And actually, when we sit down to play with our kids, it makes us remember our childhoods, how we didn't get played with, how we got yelled at, how we got ignored, how we got left alone, how we had to play alone, how we felt lonely and scared and we didn't get help. And so it's actually really hard for people to play because of what it brings up. It brings up the old stuff. And so much of my message in my videos is that parents need to have a process. If you want to be a loving parent, you need to have a personal healing process, whatever that is. It's different for everyone. Some people can go to therapy, some people can't. Some people use their friendships, some people get peer support, some people use writing and biking. And, the parents need a way to self-reflect. And every person, if you want to be a good parent, has to look at your childhood. And when I say a good parent, what I mean is your best self, your best self. Because if you're not examining how you got hurt, you're going to reenact those things. That's just how it works. So if you don't know how to play, it means you got hurt and you haven't really explored those hurts yet. That's all that means. I'm not saying it's easy, but that is the problem. That is the problem. Your playful self is buried and needs to be found, and you need to figure out how to find that part. And that takes time, but most of all, you have to want it. You have to think it matters. You have to find your tools. You have to find your skills for how you're going to go after the vulnerable, open part of you that is no longer in your consciousness. You can't find it, and you got to find it. Here's the thing. You have to be willing to feel your feelings, the pain that's in the way from being open with your child that way. So you might have to sit there while they're playing around you and be present to what's coming up for you. Do you feel scared? Do you feel angry? Do you feel sad? Do you feel shut down? Do you feel numb? And be willing to feel those feelings. That's really the opening. That's where it begins. You might want to write about it. You might want to just meditate and sit with it. What comes up for you, and try to be loving and non-judgmental with yourself while you explore this. Inner child work is so beautiful. It's a really great book is No Bad Parts by Richard Schwartz. It's a really great introduction to working with inner parts. I highly recommend it.
I hit some good points there, I feel.
Yeah, 100%. Another thing people will say that they are mainly experiencing is this boredom. Like it's just so mind numbing, this experience of like your kid is like, eat the thing and like let's do store or whatever. People are just like, I cannot get into this. Like it's just not my thing. Pretend play or whatever the play is. And I just want to validate that feeling too, because like I would have that if my kid, I would not be able to play a sport with my kid. That would be very hard for me. Like I would really try if my kid was really wanting me to engage in that way. If I had like a kid who loved like soccer, but to play soccer, to run around, kick a ball, to like do anything like of that nature for me, it's just like so not at all something I enjoy. So
I have a friend, she's a trauma survivor, and she goes into trauma. When her kid was little and her kid would say, sit down and play with me, she would go into trauma because she got abused at the time where she would be playing that way. So her abuse would come up and she'd feel like the most intense sense of, what was the word? She's like, when you're repelled, like she's like, I have to get away from, like, it's like, it was sharply triggering, not just boring. Yeah. And I think boredom is also a cover for other feelings.
Yeah, I was going to say like there's boredom, and that's like a felt sense that you experience, but it's also worth being curious about what else is going on. right? Like I know for me, yeah, there was like athleticism trauma in my history, like trying to be athletic and getting made fun of or bullied by my teachers or, hating every second of it because I just felt worthless. So
Mm,
like it's really not about it, like it may be boredom and it may just be a bit of boredom, like you just don't like puzzles. Like I'm not a big puzzle person and I really don't think there's much trauma in my puzzle history. What we're talking about, like things around that time of your life
mhm,
and getting curious about like what that block is. And if you get
mhm,
down to it and it's really just about you don't like that form of play, then certainly there's something you can find that you like. And you can
mhm,
also probably open yourself up to finding something about the thing. If it's not traumatic and it's just boredom, there's probably something in there that you can find enjoyable, alongside your kid while they're doing that thing. Like for me, a lot of like Battleship or like any action sort of type genre of play, I'm not into. Like I don't enjoy that, but I'll do it anyway and I'll take on some kind of role. And what I'll do is I'll try to find a role that I like. Like I will try to be something inside of that role play or that experience that I enjoy embodying. And that is where I'll try to find collaboration, with kids that I'm playing with. But it's also okay to like really, find it boring or find it unenjoyable, the thing that the kid is doing, but it's important to like look at why, if it's, something you can move through and how.
It reminds me of, I have to say this not to brag or anything, but I don't relate to the word boredom. I don't have boredom. I don't really get boredom. I understand being distressed and anxious. Uh I think boredom is a form of distress. I
Mm.
actually think it's a form of shutdown. I mean, I guess right, like if I had to watch like football, I'd probably be bored. So I guess that's like having to do something you're not interested in.
Yeah, that's what it is like, your kid really likes something that you're just really not interested in.
Yeah, but like my daughter was really into Minecraft for a while. I actually couldn't figure out how to do it. I mean, I know I didn't like really, 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 really try. That her dad played Minecraft with her for hours and hours and hours. So it's like, okay. Right. So that was something that was hard for me. I really did
Mm.
try to do it though. But
Yeah.
you see what you're saying. But I just think that parents could just stop there so easily and just be like, it's
Yeah.
boring, the end. And I feel
Yeah.
like there has to be a much deeper exploration than it's just boring. Especially because you know how many male people men say, I don't like babies. I have met so many men who say, I don't like babies. They just sit there. They're like lumps on a log. They don't have a personality yet. I'll like them when they start talking. Like that. Oh my God.
Yeah.
My dad used to say that all the time.
Yeah.
That's just, those people are shut down. Like they
Yeah.
are shut down to innocence and wonder, and their baby selves have been thrown out and they can't even, so I feel like it's just saying it's not of interest to me what my child is doing is, I think it's not, I feel like that's not acceptable.
Mm.
That's how I feel. You have to go deeper than that. We shut down these beautiful expressive parts of ourselves, and the only way to get to those parts of ourselves, which are in a lot of pain and we're probably shamed and hurt and abused and punished and shunned and left alone, is you have to go through the pain. You have to sit with the uncomfortable feelings and be in pain
Yeah.
and care about what you went through.
Yeah, I know. And I was just gonna go on a whole other rabbit hole because there's the other end of the spectrum where you push your kid into the parts of you that you really wish you had access to more often. So you
Like what?
become this like person who like insists that your kid like really loves dance or loves something that you
Oh,
wish you could have done more of or that you really love.
right.
And so you live through your kid and then you get really pushy and you invest all this energy and in this time and yeah, maybe you don't like overtly coerce or control, but like that wanting is so clear and our kids, they're there to sort of please us, right? That like they're there to desperate to attach to us. So a lot of kids will try to perform for us.
Oh God, they
So it
will.
becomes this whole other thing and it's like it's important to note that like there's two ends of the spectrum here. It's like pushing on
Mhm.
your kid and also like pulling away from your kid.
Yeah.
Like you want to notice and you want to just be conscious of like when's that happening. If you don't, you're on the wrong show.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's like the whole world of play with your child where they're going to lead you, and then there's the whole healing realm where your child is also leading you into your most hurt places. And that's why I felt like this video where this person was just giving everyone permission to not play with their kids was such a lost opportunity for everyone.
And that's the thing with these like clickbaity like little snippets on the internet these days. Any video made like that, or any creators like message about like just say no because it's fine. It's like that's just way too clear cut. That's just like not nuanced enough. That's why we're talking about it for over an hour here today, because it's
I mean,
like it's
I
just
would have
not
been better
nuanced.
if she was like, "I'm too triggered." That would have been better if she was like,
Yeah.
"I'm too triggered. It triggers me too much." So that's much
Yeah,
more
like it
honest
sends
than
me into, and I think like that creator did kind of come back and talk a little bit more about it, which made more sense to me. Like once I got the context, I was like, okay, I hear that.
yeah.
But just in general, I'm not a fan of the creators who put out there this idea that like you have to teach independent play. That's a skill for life. They need your job is not to entertain. Like this language around play, I
Right.
I don't I don't talk about it that way. I don't think about it that way. That's not how I, think about family systems in general.
Right. And if your child like stops knowing how to play, you should be worried. Like
Yeah.
that's, when I saw my daughter playing with her friends and they were laughing and trading and like little kids, it makes me so happy. I'm like, she still can step into the timeless place that you were talking about.
Mhm.
She's, because I have that. I'm an artist. Being an artist is play. There's, well, at least for me, that's, well, because I make these crazy videos. When I'm making my TikToks, it's like play for me, totally.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
cracking myself up. I think I'm so funny, and I forget about the rest of the world, and I'm all in a creative mind, and like, so I know how to play because of being an artist. And I also am part of a dance community where we all act like little kids together and play, and it's so fun, it's so great.
Mhm.
And if that part of me was lost, I would be so worried because it's the only thing that makes life worth living for me.
Yeah.
Both with my family, with my friends, with my kid. That's where all the joy is. The joy is in the
Yeah.
play,
Yeah.
being playful and stepping out of the ordinary into the magic. Like when my daughter wants to go outside and walk in the rain, it's
Yeah.
inconvenient. I'm in the middle of cooking, blah, blah, my clothes are going to get wet. We have to do something. We're late, whatever. And I just drop it and I step into the magical world. It's like, it's the best.
Yeah. I just keep thinking about the parents who they don't have what you're talking about at all.
Yeah.
Like that's not part of their life, and and
Yeah.
and if, I guess if you don't know it, it's kind of almost like you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So like maybe we're a little bit of an echo chamber, you and I, because I have that. But there are people out there that really don't. Like they don't necessarily have like an outlet or like a place where they unmask fully. There's a lot of people who are just kind of performing for the system all
Oh.
the time.
I do think everything we've been talking about is also speaking to those people.
I hope so. I
I
hope
mean, I
so. I
think
hope
it's pushing out of the ordinary, like out of capitalism, like step out of the
into
time space.
weirdness. Into
Yes,
weirdness. I
this
like
step
I
out of the
want to
time space continuum of capitalism and patriarchy, and your kid will show you how to do that.
yeah. And when we feel really like embarrassed by our kids, like I know a kid who's really people you'd say like you'd be like this kid's so weird, but I think that's such a huge compliment. I think weirdness is amazing. Quirkiness incredible. Like the quirkier the better. Like I absolutely adore weird and wild and wonderful wacky people. So this kid is that, but I mean that in the most endearing way. And I see parents think about their kids and make excuses for the kids, like it's embarrassing sometimes for people.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think like it's such a wonderful mindset shift to make if you can like lean into it and join the kid in the weirdness and be weird with your kid and have your kids show you and take you to that magical place. Because if you're not a person who can go there very easily, like maybe you're lucky enough to have a weird and wacky kid who can help you.
Right, and you're basically living with someone who could help you heal. That's my whole point.
Exactly.
And like that portal for them is not always going to be open. Like this is a
Yeah.
chance, it's a chance of a lifetime.
Yeah, that's what we
You
talk
know,
about when we're like spiritually, really, it's like sort of like another
Mhm.
realm that they're able to go to inside of their imagination, which, don't we as adults take like psychedelics to try to go there? Like, aren't we always on the search for that?
Right.
Like for this
Right.
you know, place that is never accessible because like we're inside of capitalism. Like this is our chance to like be momentarily inside of that. Our
Right.
kids are right
No,
there.
right. It's also trying to always get back.
Yes. We're
And then
always trying to get back.
they're trying to get back, and then they're punishing their children for being there. It's just like, it's nuts.
Totally. Yeah. This has been Your Kids Don't Suck. You can find me, Cara Tedstone, at www.caratedstonetherapy.com and on Instagram at Cara Tedstone Therapy. On my website, you'll find links to recommended readings and a link to my Reparenting with Mindfulness workbook, available now on Amazon.
You can find me, Rythea Lee, at www.rythea.com. That's RYTHEA.com. There you'll find published books, articles, and music, and parenting videos. Also, I'm on TikTok at Rythea Lee, on Instagram at Rythea Lee. You can book parent mentoring sessions with me through my website. And also I have an Advice from a Loving Bitch YouTube show that helps people heal self-hatred, and that's rythea.com/advice. It is important and essential to put our voices, Rythea and Cara, in a context. We are two white, cisgendered, straight, middle-class women living with financial and societal privilege. Because of this, our perspectives are limited and do not reflect the realities of all of our listeners. This podcast will feature guests with expertise around conscious parenting who differ in race, class, abilities, sexual orientation, and histories from us, to broaden the conversation and reflect the lives of as many people as possible. 25% of the proceeds of this podcast will go to creators of color who have been mentors and influences on our work and in our growth as parents.
If you like our show, please subscribe and stay tuned for more conscious parenting advice and insights. And check out our link tree at linktr.ee/yourkidsdon'tsuck to donate and connect with us.